and today we have a very wonderful guest whose name is Miss Deb Krier. So let's chit chat with her and let's get to know more about her. So first of all, hello Miss Deb, and how are you doing today?
Hello, Hamzah. Thank you so much for having me on. We're going to have a great conversation. I'm doing fabulous today.
That's great to know that you're doing fabulous. So hope you'll be more fabulous after this interview. So before we start off, could you please give your short introduction so that our viewers could know more about you?
Sure. I was born in Colorado and moved 13 years ago to Atlanta, so in Georgia. I started my own business, Wise Women Communications, about 25 years ago, and we are a full service marketing and PR firm. Um, and I'm a graduate of the University of Colorado and Colorado State University. I have several degrees in business and in communications. But Wise Women Communications, as I said, is my business now. Been having a lot of fun with it. And along the way, I started a podcast of my own. I've had several of your students on as guests. It's called the Business Power Hour. And later on today, I'll be recording episode 1122. So I've been doing it since before you were born. And I also am a cancer survivor, and I started a movement around it called TryingNotToDie.live, and I serve as a strategic advisor for executives who are dealing with a cancer diagnosis.
All right. Thank you so much for your wonderful introduction. It's great and it's really like amazing to hear that you have survived cancer and you're doing all of these things to promote like not being diagnosed with cancer and ways to not be diagnosed with cancer. So, first of all, Miss Deb, could you please tell us about your early life and what shaped your interest in communication and public relations?
Well, I've always been somebody who talked a lot. I was the kid that in school they had to say, shh, shh, but I was working in what was, would be considered corporate America. So I was working for a business, but I knew that it would not be something I could do long term. I loved it there. I loved what what we did. I really liked working with the people, but it was not going to be a long term career. And so somebody asked me, why don't you do what why don't you get paid for what you do for fun? And I realized that a lot of the things that would be considered marketing, public relations, things like that, I did as a volunteer for several different types of organizations. So that was when I went back and got a degree in communications, a master's degree in communications, and really started focusing on that. My first big career that focused on public relations and media relations in particular was with the American Cancer Society, and I did media relations for 7 states. And it was a great job. It was a wonderful place to learn. And, and from there I went to an agency. I worked with several different agencies. And then I worked for the seventh largest corporation in the world doing their social media and communications. And then I founded my own company, and have just been doing it, doing communications, marketing, public relations for almost 30 years.
Wow, that's great to know that you've been in this industry for the last 30 years. So, now after getting to know that you have been in this industry from the last 30 years, so what are the ups and downs you faced, and what would you like to say for people starting out in your industry?
Well, I think the best thing that has happened is obviously technology. Um, when I first started doing public relations, we didn't even really use computers that much. And so we would write a press release on paper. We'd get however many copies we needed. If it needed photos, we had copies of the photos made. We actually put stickers on the back of the photos to say what it was. This is Bob Smith doing whatever. And then we mailed them out to the various media outlets. So technology has been excuse me, absolutely fabulous. And now, of course, I use AI to do a lot of what I do, at least to create a first draft. And so, it's something that I think, your school obviously emphasizes a lot of, and it really is a great tool. But for someone who's wanting to be in communications or public relations in particular, at least here in the States, I always suggest to students to volunteer with organizations, much like I did, and be on committees that they have. If they've got maybe a big special event coming up, you can volunteer to help with that. And just ways to get experience while you're still in school is a great thing, because you can always put that counts as experience. It doesn't matter that you were paid or not. So plus it's a great way to see, do I really like this, before you're choosing your path, especially to go on to college. So it's a great way to get experience and see if you really like what that is.
Wow, that's great to know. So thank you so much for telling us about that. That's really inspiring to know. So now, growing up, did you always imagine yourself working in, or did life take you to that journey unexpectedly?
Well, I mentioned I like to talk a lot and always have. But when I was young, probably about your age, I wanted to be a lawyer. I thought that sounded very interesting. I really wanted to do that. And that was the career path that I was working toward all through high school. Here in the States, we have 4 years of high school, and then we go on to college. And I got to college, I thought, ew, I don't like that. It just for some reason wasn't something that I wanted to do. And so
Yeah.
that was when I started going more towards communications.
So it turns out that life didn't take you there unexpectedly. You had this passion in yourself that you wanted to go into public relations
Right,
and communication.
right. Hmm. Hmm.
All right, that's great to know. That's very inspiring to know that this is the first time I have heard that nobody has been to the place where they are without like unexpectedly happening, and this is the first time it's like that. So that's really
It was
inspiring to
it was
hear.
much it was a more smooth journey maybe for me.
Oh, that's great. That's more better. It makes it more better. So, who has been the biggest influence in your personal or professional journey? The one who has motivated you the most, that even on times when you, like on your serious times when you wanted to quit, that same second making a decision when you're angry. So, who was the one who motivated you, and like through them you felt that you should continue in this profession, and so that you could progress more?
Right. It's been maybe more a group of people, and it changed through the years. There were times where I would think I needed to prove something to my boss, and so I would want to be successful to show them. And that's I don't know if that's a good or bad motivation, but it definitely was one of the reasons why I would do things. I really motivate myself a lot. I'm always learning. I'm always taking classes, learning more. But, in the last 10 years or so, I've been part of a mastermind group, a networking group that is professional women. And each one of those women, and especially the leader, have really motivated me to continue and to grow. And they each bring a little bit different. One person is the person who's going to encourage no matter what. Another
Yeah.
is a person who challenges you, and says, well, I think you should be doing this. And then so I think it's, not, like I said, not really one person, but a group of people along the way.
All right. So out of those group of people who, like comparing your group of people along the way, which you have mentioned, and comparing your family. So which
Mhm.
one would you choose that who has been the most influential and the most motivating person for you, or
Well,
like
and
both?
in my family, it would have been my mother. She passed away about 18 months ago, but
Glad to hear that.
she definitely pushed me. When I was getting ready, when I was still in high school, getting ready to go to college, it was not an option. I was going to college. There was no
Yeah.
doubt that that was going to happen. And she didn't really understand what it was that I was doing, but she would ask a lot of questions about it, and that was good because it helped me kind of process what is it that I'm doing,
Yeah.
and things like that. And so now, like I said, she is gone. But the thing, and,
Glad to
and I
hear.
think we do this a lot with our parents. We want to make them proud of us, right? My
Yeah.
dad was always proud of me. He passed away quite a few years ago. He didn't understand what I did at all. I mean, that was just not, but he was proud of me no matter what.
All right, that's great to know. Really great to know that your parents have inspired you even after like passing away. Sad to hear that. It's really inspiring to hear that you are being motivated while they are looking towards you from above. So thank you so much for telling us about that. So if you could describe your younger self in 3 words, what would those words be?
Hmm. I would say scrawny, brainy, and nerdy.
Wow. Any specific reason to say that?
Well, I went to a very small school. My graduating high school class had 32. And so you obviously, we knew everybody. I'd grown up with most of them. Many of them I had started at age 5 with when we started in school.
Wow.
Uh, I was kind of the nerdy kid. I played musical instruments. I tried to play sports. I was not good at it. But I also was a very good student. And so, the nice thing about a very small school is you get to do a lot of different things. And I tried to do as much as I possibly could. But and I mentioned the word scrawny. Oh, I was this little kid. I was thin, I was skinny, which is not a bad thing,
Yeah.
but yeah, I was definitely the brainy nerd.
All right, that's great to know. If which means that you had a lot more knowledge than the people in your class. All right. So, was there a specific moment when you realized that storytelling was a gift for you, which like motivated you and progressed your career a lot?
I think it's something I've always done. I'm an only child, and so as I said, I talk a lot, and so I tell a lot of stories, and I have ever since I was really little. But I did discover how beneficial it is for a business to be telling stories, not just, hey, buy this product, but telling the story about it and getting people, or you're getting them involved in it, and wanting to be part of that. And I think storytelling is where, to me, people can put themselves in that same position. They go, oh yeah, I felt that way, I've had that happen to me. And so I think storytelling is a very important product that we need to use in business.
All right, that's great to know that storytelling is a very important product. So hopefully, the businessmen who would be seeing this would learn from your aspects and your journey. So moving towards your career and professional insights. So as you've spent over 25 years in PR and marketing, what has been the most rewarding aspect of this career?
I am always a consultant, and so I am not an employee. I just go in and work on specific projects, and I love seeing my clients be successful. Whether it's something really small or something really big, it's just so
Yeah,
much fun to see them be successful and know that I helped contribute to that.
true. That's true. That's very true of you. So, out of these clients that you're mentioning, who you like to see are becoming successful in what they want to purchase. So, out of all of these like things which you have learned through PR and marketing and handling clients, so what would you recommend for people who are jumping into this new position of being a consultant and handling the client? So, what would you say to them?
I think, I mentioned it. You need to know AI. I think it's going to be, even more so important in the future. One of the things that I learned when I started my own business was to set boundaries. In other words, I have hours. And so I tell my clients I work from 9 until 5. And and that's because I work from home, and I always have. And I
Wow.
discovered that one of the things they thought was, well, you're home, you should work all the time, including weekends. And I told them,
Mhm.
no, no, I keep regular business hours just like a regular business, because I am a regular business. So, kind of setting those boundaries. And, I might read an email that they send at 10 o'clock at night, but I don't respond to it because I don't want them to know, oh yeah, she is working. And same thing with weekends, or holidays. I set those boundaries, and but I know that they have those boundaries also. I'm not
Yeah.
going to try and contact them in the evening or weekends unless there's something that is urgent. Um, One of the best things that I had somebody tell me when I was starting my business 25 years ago was, is it a hobby or is it a business? And if it is a
True.
business, run it like a business. Here in the United States, we have to have business licenses. We have to do all sorts of things. And so
Yes.
always treat it as a business as opposed to a hobby that you just kind of do for fun. Now, it can be fun and it should be fun, but it still needs to be a business and run like a business.
All right. So thank you so much for telling us about that. That's great to know that you learned all of these things while starting your business. So now that you have mentioned that you work from home and you have always worked from home, so could you tell us if you like to work in the day or you like to work in the night as a night owl?
I am kind of more of a night owl. I'm definitely not a morning person. And
Mhm.
so I do get more things done in the afternoon and the evening, but it's whatever whatever the situation requires. If the client is needing
Yeah.
me to work at 8 o'clock in the morning, then I work at 8 o'clock in the morning. But yeah, it's and that is the nice thing about working from home. I'm not having to drive, things like that, and I can work, very flexible hours.
So now, so if I'm not wrong, you're saying that you are a night owl or a morning person depending on the client, right?
Right, much more a night owl. I'm pretty productive at 8 o'clock at night, or it seems like it anyway.
All right. So thank you so much for telling us about that. It's really inspiring to know. So, how do you approach helping executives craft powerful LinkedIn profiles that reflect not just their skills but their journey and story as well?
Well, I thank you for asking that because I think it's very important. So many times, an executive, a business manager, business owner, they craft their LinkedIn profile more for their business and forgetting that LinkedIn is personal. They need to be talking about their skills, their highlights, their, and even put it in the first person. I do this, I do that, as opposed to, Mr. Smith does this, and because, we're making connections to make personal connections. So we need to remember that when we're talking on LinkedIn. As I said, it's great to put volunteer work in there, even if it's not business related, because it shows that you have a life outside of business. Maybe is the way to put it. But it's very important to have a very robust LinkedIn profile that shows who you are as a person, and not focusing on your business, because you never know when your business might go away. And so you still need to be on LinkedIn as you and not as your business.
Oh, that's true. That's really true. So, till now, if you remember or not, how many people or clients have you helped create astonishing LinkedIn profiles to gain more network and gain more visibility, if you remember?
I'm not sure of the exact number because but I've been working with folks to do LinkedIn profiles for probably about 20 years. Really, when
Wow.
LinkedIn first started, it was one of those where I saw it much more. Originally people just used it to get jobs, right? And so it was their
Yeah.
online resume. And I saw it more as a place, you mentioned the word storytelling. LinkedIn is a great place to tell your story. And so I've been working with people to have a great online story for many, many years. And that's everybody from students all the way up to executives.
Gee, that's very nice to know. Thank you so much for telling us about that. So, now could you please tell us that what do most misunderstand about LinkedIn? Either they think it as a online resume, as you said, or what is your opinion about this?
I think too often, and I'm probably guilty of this too, we're not active enough on it. And LinkedIn's algorithms are designed to show, it's just like all social media. If you are more active, your posts are shown more frequently. And so you want to be active on LinkedIn. Now, active on LinkedIn is 15 minutes a day. I'm not talking a ton of time. So maybe it's, while you're, having, your first cup of coffee or lunch break or something like that. You can get, very active on LinkedIn in just 15 minutes a day. but it shows that you are there, you are dedicated, and you are a real person who is using this as a true business tool.
Yes, that's very true. So thank you so much for telling us about that, and thank you so much for telling us about the average time which we should spend on LinkedIn. That's a really emphasizing point which you have mentioned. So unfortunately, as you can see, I may be unable to move on your screen. It's really an unexpected issue which suddenly appeared up. So, but I'm still here and I'm still listening to your
I can hear
wonderful
you.
answers. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm still listening about your journey. It's really inspiring. So, from your perspective, what role does authenticity play in personal branding?
It's the most critical thing. We cannot and should not try to be someone else. Now, do we need to maybe tone things back a bit? Yes. But we have to be authentic. And it's tricky because I always tell people, what if you meet them in real life? Are they going to go, well, wait a minute, that doesn't seem like what I've seen online? Or are they going to go, oh yeah, this matches? So if you are somebody who has a sense of humor, you can have LinkedIn posts that have a sense of humor. Now I always suggest to people that unless it is their job, you watch politics and you watch religion. That's not really something that gets posted on LinkedIn. But if that is part of your job, then that's okay. But it is very important that what what people see from you online is what they would see from you if they met you in person.
All right, so thank you so much for telling us about that. That's really inspiring and that's really insightful towards me that you have emphasized about personal branding. So, now could you please tell us that since you have advised senior leaders across industries, so what do you think sets the most successful ones apart?
I think it's one of the biggest things is that they have to have empathy. They cannot be just the boss, just the leader. They need to really, feel empathy for their employees, their consultants, their, customers, whoever. And they need to be open to suggestions. They need to continue learning. I think learning is something that they should, no matter what you are doing, always be learning. And I think it's even more important for a leader to continue to be learning. We have a saying over here where we say, you should never be the smartest person in the room. And by that means you should always be with people who you are learning from. And I think it's very important for a leader to remember that. I think it's also important for a leader to remember that a leader is more internal. It is not a title. I can't say you are, I can say you are a president, you are a director, but leadership is something that people have inside them as opposed to just something that is given to them. I think anybody could be a leader, but not everybody is a good leader.
All right, so thank you so much for telling us about that. That's really defining for me. And since you've mentioned about like the boss has should have empathy and should not be like the boss as you mentioned. So have you ever experienced that your boss had empathy, or you think that he needs some help and you decided to help him so he could be on that boss which you are thinking about?
When I've had bosses that I didn't feel had empathy, I usually ended up leaving, because that's not a good work environment. It tends to be the type of environment where they say, you will do this, and they don't want you to make suggestions. They don't want you to do anything else. And I don't think that is something that they want to, they've been successful enough that they're the leader. So they don't see it as something they need to change. So usually if it's missing, it's going to continue to be missing. And so then I would move on. I've had bosses who yelled and screamed and threw things. No, I'm not going to work there.
Yep, that's really true. There should be an environment of, there should be a boss where he keeps the environment empathy and he keeps it equally for everyone. So everyone gets
Right.
the same type of work.
Yeah, they are still the boss, and I think that's the thing, because if they get too wrapped up in getting everybody's opinion and, doing it, then decisions don't get made. They still have to be the person who, makes the final decisions, but it's how do they go about doing that that's important.
All right. Wow, that's a really nice thing which you emphasized on lastly. So, how do you keep up with evolving trends in business communication and social media?
I read a lot. I belong to several mastermind groups. In fact, later on
Wow.
today, I am part of one that is specifically for AI. And it's interesting. They're much more advanced than I am. Most of the other members, I just sit and listen. But it is something that I try and read as much about and just keep learning and seeing what's going on. Even if I'm not using it, it's good to know what is out there.
All right, that's great to know. So, since you're keeping up with AI these days, have you heard of the AI Advantage Summit that had happened a few days ago?
I think so. And I mean, there's a lot of information out there, but I think I heard a little bit about that.
All right. So since I maybe can think that you didn't go there due to your responsibilities, but that's no problem. The recordings are still on YouTube. So once
Okay.
you heard the name AI Advantage Summit,
Okay.
what did you think about what this summit would emphasize on the most?
Mhm. Well, I think it is emphasizing the fact that it is an advantage to use it. It's going to be an advantage in business, especially. It is amazing how quickly it has evolved in 3 or so years. We never would have been talking about AI 5 years ago, even though it existed. It just wasn't something that was publicly used a lot. And I think the AI advantage is you have to use it, or as I said, you at least have to know how it can be used.
All right, thank you so much for sharing us about your opinions on after hearing just the name of the AI Advantage Summit. So, thank you so much, Mrs. Deb Krier, for coming on Wired and Inspired. So, lastly, what would you like to say about my audience, and what did you think? What do you think about this interview? How was it?
Well, you were fabulous. I want to say you were very well prepared. The information you sent me in advance was really, really good. And so you've done a great job with that. I think what I would say to your audience is always be curious. Keep learning. And no matter what it is, maybe it has nothing to do with your career, but maybe it's just something that interests you, but always be curious.
All right. So thank you so much, and I really appreciate you for giving your wonderful and precious time to coming on Wired and Inspired. Yes, everyone, she was Mrs. Deb Krier, and she came on Wired and Inspired and shared her journey about being 25 years in the field of marketing and PR. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll be back with another guest. Till then, stay wired to be inspired. Goodbye.